This is Monday's Daf Nun Zayin. We'll do two about 30 minutes from as well. So we're going now through Kochim Kalim, and the Kochim Kalim we're doing is B'choir and Meiser and Pesach. And we said that albeit on the one hand you can shecht it anywhere you want in the Beis Hamikdash, doesn't have to necessarily be in the north side. And we also said that, but they're still different because of B'choir you can eat for 2 days and 1 night. The other one you can eat only for 1 day and 1 night. And the current Pesach only, this Mishnah followed Rabbi only until Chatzais. Plus, all the other Kabbalah you can do whatever you want. You can cook, you can fry, you can roast, whatever you want. But current Pesach has to be solely roasted. Okay. We're up to the 2 dots. Habchoy nechel koinim, that the b'choy is eaten by koinim only. Told about me learned. Mashenkin the current Pesach and Mashenkin Maisa Behema. Everybody. So the Gemara says, Taraban, we learn, first of all, Haino B'choy can be eaten 2 days and 1 night. Shenemar, because it says in the Pasuk, Ubesaram Yelach, its flesh should be to you. Talking about B'choy. Kechazei Hatrufa Ukeshay Kaimin. Like what you normally do by a korban shlamim, you give the chazei and the shake to the kohen. So the entire B'choy has the same status as the chazei shake. In other words, you go to the kohen. Exactly. But then the pasuk says again, l'chayiyah should be yours, which is really superfluous. You already started off saying, "Upsaram yiyah l'cha" should be yours. Why say again? So the Gemara dashes, "Upsaram l'cha kechazei atrufa, ukeshei kayimin." Now remember, chazei hatrufa. We have about 2 different kabbanas. We have about karban shlamim, which is actually where it's written, and then you have about karban taida, where it says v'imal taida yirachanu, and there we have through a hekesh. A karban taida we learn through a hekesh that also the chazei neshek goes to a kayin. So which chazei v'shek are we going to compare it to? We're saying that b'choy has the same status as a chazei v'shek. Which one? The shlamim, 2 days and a night, or the toida, 1 day and a night? So Kicha Akosav will say we can equate it chazei v'shek shlamim. Ma shlamim, just like a shlamim, ne'echol shlayim l'ayla echad, ab'choy nechol shlayim l'ayla echad. Okay, that's what we do. We learn it from chazei v'shek, from shlamim. Says the Gemara, very interesting. V'zu shayla nishal lifnei chachamim. This very issue was raised in front of the Chachamim, Bekedem B'Yavna. So the way they learned, the way they learned over there was in the form of a kedem, rows, not in the, the semicircles, not the 3 rows of semicircles, 23 in a row. No, we didn't have that. They had straight lines. Shouldn't look like a Sanhedrin because they had no right to. The Romans were very makbid. Anyway, so they were sitting there learning. And this question was asked, how long can a b'choir eat for? No, it was a day and a night, or 2 days and a night. And then Tafron responded, b'choir is 2 days and a night. There was one student. This was his first day appearance. So this gives you an idea of the Talmidim, who they were. You see who the Rebbes were. Who was the Talmud? Rabbi Yossi Haglili Shmoi. His name was Rabbi Yossi Haglili. And see how smart he was. Rebbe, he says, Rebbe, how do you know it's 2 days and a night? Most Kochim Kalim are 1 day and night. Shlamim is an exception. He says, he said, me, my son. So obviously he must have been young also. My son, Shlamim Kochim Kalim, Shlamim Kalim, Upchoy Kochim Kalim. So we make a Mem Tzinu. Ma Shlam Nechol Shlayim Lalechot, Upchoy Nechol Shlayim Lalechot. No, he's learning like a Mem Tzinu. Not a heck, but they're very similar, so they should have the same halachas in both cases. He said to him, Rebbe, B'choy, what's B'choy? B'choy is a matana to a kohen. Shlamim goes to the bailim, except the chazei b'shek. B'choy, the entire B'choy is given over to a kohen. So which carbon do you think it's more similar to? It should be similar to another carbon, which the entire carbon goes to kohenim. No, it's to kachim. Like a chatas l'moshel. And what's the din by a chatas? A day and a night. So why don't we say, it's all you're doing is a mematzinu. Let's compare it to a chatas. The chatas is my chatas should be only a day and night. I have an answer back. Okay, I have 2 choices to compare it to a chatas compared to a shlamim. I think it's more similar to a shlamim. Why is it more similar to shlamim? Because what kind of carbon is a chatas? A kapara. That's not what this is. A b'choy is not a kapara. So therefore, it's similar to shlamim. Not the davar terdava, but nimu davar terdava. We should always compare things that are similar. Ma shlamim ein boin al chet. A b'choy ein bo al chet. So they're have more similarities with a shlamim. Therefore, they share the same thing. Amalei Rebbe, you want to compare Mematzinu. I can argue that a plate is more similar to a chatas than to a shlam. How so? Not medaber, you medaber. Okay, chatas v'osham is maton l'kohen. First of all, what I said before, the chatas and osham goes to the kohen. The b'chayr goes to the entire b'chayr goes to the kohen. Number one. Number two, b'chayr b'aton l'kohen. Number one. Number two, ma chatas v'osham ain't boyin b'neder v'dav. You can't volunteer and bring a chatas or an osham. Yeah, it's a chiyuv from the Torah. A b'chayr ain't b'neder v'dav. It's not up to you. You can't decide. Okay, this animal I'll treat like a b'chayr. It's peterechem. So you have two similarities to a chatas, and you only have one to a shlamim. Right? They're both not kapara. Is ma chatas v'osham nechol yemechad? Avchay nechol yemechad? Reb Tarfon was stuck. This is his first day student, and he already got his teacher stuck. Kafetz Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva jumped in. Said, let me take over this conversation. It's a beautiful Gemara. You see how they used to learn.
A Talmud, but then became a
Talmud Chaver. Yep. V'nistalik Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon stepped back. Rashi said he kept quiet. Excuse me. Rashi said nishtatek. He was lost for words. Not that he decided, no, I'm going to stay out of it, but he had to, basically. So to give it to save face, I guess, he jumped in. Amala, you said, this is the first day they see the yeshiva. This is Rabbi Seglu. Yes, Rabbi Akiva there, Rabbi Tarfon. And Rabbi Akiva said, not a mematini. We're going to make a hekesh here. The pasuk says, by Torah of Sodom Yilacha. It's by B'chayr. It says, Sodom Yilacha, B'chayr should be yours. And the Torah compares it to Chazei Trufa. The Torah itself makes a hekesh to Chazei Trufa. Hekish and Akasul Chazei V'shoik Shlamim. So Chazei Trufa what? The Chazei Shoik of a Shlamim. No, is Mashlam Nechos Yom Lechad. No more Mamansinu. This is a hekesh. Amalei. Rabbi Yosef the third. He said, Hikashti, you decided to compare it to Karm Shlamim, so 2 days and a night. I say, we don't know which one to compare it to. Maybe it's a Torah. And what do you do when you don't know? Something a Torah, you always machmir. So how can you eat for 2 days and 1 night? We should be machmir and eat it only for 1 day and 1 night, because maybe it's compared to a Torah. Hikashti, I say, Hikashta, you makach the Chazar Shlamim. V'anima kisha, I say, maybe I can argue, let's be makach the Chazar Torah. Matay nechel yom v'layla, v'chay nechel yom v'layla. So Rabbi Akiva goes on. Amalei said to him, I'll tell you why. It says in the pasuk, "Uvesaram yield." The pasuk talks of Uvesaram yilach, right? Who ends up with the flesh of the carbon of the kohen? So why does the pasuk? And after it says Chazei Hatrufa, Meshayk, the pasuk says again l'chayir. Why is it again l'chayir? So we don't need the words l'chayir. We already know it goes to the kohen. Why is it again l'chayir? There's another case that goes to you. There's another din that we're going to learn from here. No, there's another din we're going to learn from Shlamim to B'chayr. And that's how I know. So that's Rabbi Akiva's answer. Says the Gemara. It's not over yet. This is about the coffee machine. Yeah, wow. Anyway, now Rabbi Shmuel got involved, but he wasn't there present at the conversation. Someone I guess they were all excited. What a conversation. And they repeated to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva said to the messenger Rabbi Akiva, Ta'isa, you made a mistake. You made a mistake. In other words, what's Rabbi Akiva saying? Akiva saying, you're right. We'll compare it to Torah. But so Torah says 1 day and 1 night. But then I have a pasuk that says, there's another. I'm going to give you more. Not I'm sorry, but I'm giving you more. I'm going to give you an extra day. So Rabbi Akiva is agreeing with Rabbi Yossi HaGalili that you learn from Torah, but because you have another pasuk, we're going to give you another one. Yeah. So we have a special pasuk. We'll give you 1 more day. Another gift. So Rabbi Shmuel says, you're wrong.
If you learned it from the other way and used this pasuk, you have 3 days.
If you use both, yeah. Comes Rabbi Shmuel says, you're wrong. You think you agreed with him that you learn from Torah. How can you learn from Torah? Where does it say in the Torah by Torah you can eat a chazay v'shoik? It gives it a kind. It doesn't say anywhere. But it's only from a hekesh, because it says v'im zevach Torah. And the pasuk before talks about shlamim. And shlamim, you have the inyan of chazay v'shoik. So we extend it now to the Torah. And what do we learn before? Something you learn from a hekesh. You cannot be malamed b'hekesh. So how can you b'chlal say you learn from Torah? Of course you learn from shlamim. That's the makar of chazay v'shoik. Simple as that. That's why 2 days and 1 night. Nothing to do with chayiyah, nothing to do with Torah. He says, "Tay mechalanda mishlamim. V'chidavar lo mehekesh chayim lam mehekesh. Ha'ein Allah chalitim b'loshen achim b'loshen rishon." The initial way of learning from shlamim. That's what you should. You should never agree to Beis Haglili. So what's he can do with those words? Lima teach you. I'm going to give you another gift. What is the other gift? Different than buy a carbon if it has a mum. That's it. It's not a carbon. By pchayit, even a mum, it goes to the kohen. Leaving a pchayit by mum should not turn to the kohen. So we don't find anywhere else that a mum goes to the kohen. Mum usually is disqualified. Pchayit is not. That's what I do l'chayir. So before you want to get back into this discussion, what's going on here? You want to ask Akiva, where does he know this din? Yalef le. He learns it out. It says a plural upsaram. What do you mean plural upsaram? Whether it has a mum, whether it doesn't. Chad tam b'chad b'mum. Nu Rabbi Shmuel was it why tak is written in plural? Because a b'chay could be a different kind of animal. So psara means whichever animal it is, you have the same din. Rabbi Shmuel can be psara in the hand of b'chay kama. All these things that we spoke about before in the passage talks about different animals. But when Mike can be so you have Rabbi Yossi Aglili, this Talmud was there for one day. And he thought he should compare it to Teda. Rabbi Akiva agrees that Rabbi Yossi Aglili should learn from Teda. Navos Rabbi Akiva adds, we have a special possible chayir, okay, which Rabbi Yossi didn't know, whatever. And then you have Rabbi Shmuel who says, how can you hekesh malam hekesh? What's going on here? What Rabbi Aglili, Rabbi Akiva hold that you could. We already learned before that everyone is made to, once you learn a hekesh, you cannot learn another hekesh. The Micah Mifliki. This is interesting what we learn out from. Marsavar, here there's two, we're trying to learn the din of Yom V'Layla. Day and that's what? Whether it's day and night or 2 days and a night. And now we want to learn from Teda. The din by Teda, day and night, is written in the Teda by Teda. But get the calendar for Shlomo, it's only 2 days and a night. It's written by Teda. But the din that it should apply to that which goes to a kohen, you learn from Chazei V'Sheik. Now what? So we're learning a hekesh. The Torah says it should have the same status as Chazei V'Sheik. That very din of Chazei V'Sheik is through a hekesh. But what do you want to learn about Chazei V'Sheik? That it should be Yom V'Layla, right? Not 2 days later. That is written there. So here you have half of it is through a hekesh, which I'm trying to learn out, and half of it is written right there. Is that considered a hekesh and you cannot be malamet somewhere else or not? That's the machlekes here. The Ma'aslav Hey Menu, the Davar Acher, Havi Hekesh is treated just like a Hekesh, and because it's treated just like a Hekesh, that's Rabbi Shmuel said. You can't learn from Torah. It has to be Shlomo. However, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel say Lo Havi Hekesh. It's not called a Hekesh anymore because the din that I'm trying to learn out, Yom V'Layla, is written right there. Even though the method is through Chazei V'Sheik, which is only through a Hekesh, it's not written by Torah, but it's like half and half. So now the Gemara is going to bring a few dinim which seems to have Heimen of the Barach, and still we use it, which sounds like Rabbi Akiva. It's not really considered Hekesh. Din number one. On Yom Kippur, the Torah says that by the par, you have to, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, by the par and by the seir, by the bull and by the goat. It says here, we're definitely Zayin and from the bottom. So we're learning over here, by the par and by the goat, it says you have to spray it you spray it on top, Lamaila and Lamata. No, you're standing in the Kodesh HaKadoshim, you spray it high up for the kapedas, and then you do in the bottom. By the par, it says you do 7 on the bottom, but doesn't, in front of the Aron, the bottom, but doesn't say how many you do on the top. By the seir, exactly the opposite. By the seir, it says you do 1, because that's Lashon Yachid. You do 1 sprinkle on top, but doesn't say on the bottom. So you make a hekesh between the two. The Torah said you should do the same, so therefore you make a hekesh between the seir and the par. Just like the seir, you do 1 on top, the par you do 1 on top, and just like the par you do 7 on the bottom, the seir you do 7 on the bottom. Hekesh. Then the pasuk says that you do in the heichel in front of the pareiches exactly what you did in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. You do the same thing in the Umayid. Now, is that a double hekesh? How do you know how many do by Potter? How do you know how many do by Seir? You have to have a hekesh between the two, right? And then we're going ahead and we're doing that. But this is not a full hekesh because part of it is written befurish. For example, part of it written befurish by the Potter, you do 7 on the bottom. And the 1 on top, we learn from a hekesh. And the same thing by the Seir. The 1 on top is befurish written there in the Torah, but the 7 is a hekesh. So it's half and half. And then the Torah says, whatever you did inside the Kodesh, do the same thing in Kodesh. So this is a half a hekesh is going to teach you another hekesh. Klor is not a problem. All right, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shagluli against Rabbi Shmuel. How's a Bishmol going to learn that? That's the most question. Says the Gemara. The one who says that a half a hekish and some written footage is not a hekish. Hainu is not, is the chsiv. It says the chain yasel oil mode. It says you should do exactly the same thing in oil mode, right? It's on Yom Kippur. Whatever you did in Kodesh Kadosh, do the exact same thing in oil mode. And kashem shemazel lefnai lefnim, just like you did inside. Achas lemayla b'shevel lamata, b'dam apart by the par, one on top, seven below. Kach mazel behechel. Do the same thing in the hechel. When it came to the goat, you did one on top of seven below. Okay, it's not a problem. How can somebody learn a hekesh, teach another hekesh? It's not a full hekesh, the first one, because part of it was written in the Torah by the seer, by the part. Elaman Amar Havi Hekesh. Rishmol says that's a problem. It's called a hekesh, and that's why he says we don't learn from Torah at all. We go directly to Shlomim for day and night. What's he in housing learn shot? So I'm going to give two answers. Answer number one. Mekaymus of the Gemara does two different things. The first hekesh was to teach you how many? One on top, seven on bottom. The Torah says treat the makam of the heichel exactly like you treat the makam of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Whatever you did in that makam, do over here. It's a different hekesh altogether. It's not one hekesh built on another hekesh. It's not. It's two different hekesh. That's finished. That's another hekesh, and therefore Rabbi Shmuel says that I'm learning him a kaimus. I'm not learning spraying. I'm learning the Torah says whatever you did there, you do the same thing in the hechel. Different kind of a hekesh altogether, and that's not called a hekesh built on a hekesh. You're allowed to. That's answer number one. Eboy said me, you don't like that answer because at the end of the end of the day, what you're learning at the hazos. I'll tell you. Here it's all in one go. I am learning outside from inside. And I'm learning from what the Torah clearly says. You have to do the sprays, and the Torah clearly says l'mayla l'mata, and just missing out how much l'mayla is or missing how much l'mata. That's some hekesh. But I'm not learning two steps. By a Torah, it's two steps. First of all, you learn that a b'chala Torah you have to have a chazeh b'shoik. How do you know? And that's totally unrelated to the next thing. And then you want to learn a hekesh chazeh b'shoik. It's day and night. That's two steps. Rabbi Shmuel says that's a hekesh built in hekesh. Over here, it's all in the same go. You're learning. You have to do all the sprays you did over there. Half of it is written in the Torah, and therefore you got to do all of them. So whatever else is you learned out, you bring it together. It's not two steps; it's one step, and therefore it's mutter. Therefore you're allowed to. Okay, now we have another one. A carbon Torah by lechem bekurim. There's only a few exceptions. You bring chametz, on the mizbeach. So by lechem bikurim, by shuas, you bring 2 loaves made out of wheat because that's matter the new chadash on the beis hamikdash, on the mizbeach. So you bring 2 loaves, and the Torah says shnei esrainim has to be. That means each loaf is 1 isara, a measure, and you have 2 esrainis. Then we have our korban Torah. You have to bring 10 chalos chametz, and then you bring 30 or 3 other kinds of matzahs. Each one 10. How do we know each one is 10? We'll see in a minute. So. This chametz, what measure? The Torah does not give any measure by carbon Torah. How much flour should you be using for the Torah? So now we have a gzeira shava. How do you know 10 loaves of chametz? It doesn't say in the Torah 10. How do you know 10 loaves? Because the Torah says you should give to the kohen 1 challah. We have a gzeira shava to trumas ma'aser. When a Levi gets ma'aser and he has to give to the kohen truma, how much does he give? 10%. We have a gzeira shava from that. That's over here. This challah given to the kohen is 10%. So how many chametz is there? Must be 10 loaves because you're giving 1 to the kohen. So that's gzeira shava teaches you 10. And then we look at Shavuos. Shavuos says you give 2 esrainim for 2 chalas, which means 1 isarin per chalas. So if you have 10 chalas chametz, how many esrainim should it be? 10 esrainim. So that's how you establish that by chametz there should be 10 esrainim. Then we have these matzahs. The Torah doesn't say how much to use, but because the way the Torah writes it, we're makish all the matzahs to the chametz.
It's the same amount for the 30
exactly.
Like you use for
the 10 esrainis is how you make the 30 matzahs. So 3 and a 30 saran for each segment of matzahs. Now, isn't that a hekesh from a hekesh? You're learning the measure from chametz, but chametz itself you're learning from shuas. You're learning from shuas. So that's l'chayda. Now, but it's only a part because the Gzeira Shava is as if it's written there. So how many chalas we know because it's written as if it's written in the chametz because we like Gzeira Shava, that's my 10. So 10 we know that it's written here, and that's how you know 10 for each matzah as well. I know how many 10 for each matzah because you have Gzeira Shava, and then the Gzeira Shava comes with that. So half of the din that you're learning from this chametz is as if it's written there, the Gzeira Shava, and the other half because that was done before, and the other half is the Yisrainus. And we're trying to learn both, how many and the sudden. So this is like half hekish, half written there. And that's how we learn out. Isn't that a raya to Rabbi Akiva? It's not called a hekish. And you're learning another hekish. You want to compare, that's the Gemara saying. How does Rabbi Shmuel use it? Says the Gemara. That for by Yeshua, you should bring lechet trufa from your real lives. We know we're talking about you should bring a mincha chadosh al Hashem, and then it says in the pasuk min moish v'seichem taviu. We just said already you should bring a mincha chadosh. Why is it taviu again? Is ma tam aloyim taviu? Why is it taviu? Whenever you bring anywhere you bring chametz, which really is only by a taida, achar harei kazeh. Has the same thing like Shavuos. Ma'alahala and Yisarim lechala. By Shavuos, you have one Yisarim per chala, right? Because you have two lechem, you have two loaves, and you have two Yisrainis. So that means per loaf is one Yisarim. But after Yisarim lechala, so here you have 10. We know 10 from Gzeira Shava. We'll do one per. I think. Ma'alahala over there Yisarim lechala. Over there is Yisarim lechala. Afkan Yisarim lechala. Sorry. So because that comes on. But the total, why are you breaking it down and saying, okay, there by Shavuos we have one Isaran per chala. So we're going to make a hekesh and say, but Tiena, the same thing should apply by Toida. Maybe look at the total sum. The total there is 2 Israelis for the 2 chalas. So maybe the 10 loaves of bread, you know 10 because everything is Shabbat, but the 10 loaves of bread should be a total of 2 Israelim. So each one should be a fifth of Isaran. The Gemara, Aftan Shnei Israelim. Tiena. Tiena is an extra yud. Actually, tell you 10. Now what? Here's 10 Esrainis. Okay. So what do we have here? So by chalas of Toida, by chometz chalas of Toida, we have a Gzeira Shava that says you need 10, so as if it's written there. And then you have the idea of a sudden per chala, or the total of 10 Esrainis, you learn from a hekesh, from Shavuos. L'madna asara l'chometz. So we know that there's 10 Esrainis, 10 loaves for chometz. Asara l'matzah 9. And how do you know that you have 10 matzahs and 10 esreinas by matzah? Is Tamaloimer al? It says in the pasuk that on top, after it goes through the matzah, it says al chalis lechem chafetz yakim kamoni, and this is in addition to the lechem chametz. No, the Torah is bringing it or is juxtaposing it to the lechem chametz. Is neged chametz have matzah, corresponding to the chametz, you bring the matzah. And first it goes through the 3 different kind of matzah you got to bring. And then so the chalas lechem chametz. We're making a hekesher. So we know that in total you have 10 israinis. That's you're learning a hekesh from chametz, and chametz itself. Part of it, what you're trying to learn out is written. That's 10. But part, because the Gzeira Shava makes as if it's written there, and part of it, how many israinim is from a hekesh. So it's a hekesh. So it's a hekesh and a half a hekesh, and yet we're learning it. We can do it. How you can remember? So the Gemara Tavi say it says in the pasuk Taviu is by Shavuos, which is extra, which you don't need, right? It's as if the word Taviu was not written by Shavuos, but as if the word Taviu was actually written in the pasuk of Chalos Lechem Chametz, as if it's written by Torah itself. We had this before, this concept. Lapar, we had all these things that you're comparing parts. It's as if the word Taviu is actually written in the laws of Torah, and therefore it's no longer a hekesh from a hekesh. It's right here before it, because it's an extra word. Finishing this Pedic. No, he together with Rabbi Akiva. This became the famous Rabbi Lili. Just amazing. You see, first of all, how they treated him. My Rebbe was screaming, "You shaita, what a nard! What do you ask Mr. Kloskowski?" He didn't know that answer. He was saying, "You're going to Kloskowski here." They went through it, and Tarfon was silence. Rabbi Akiva argued, and Rabbi Shmuel. I mean, all the heavies got involved. A Pesach and an Echel. Remember in Gemara in Saita there, that Meir learned by Rabbi Shmuel one thing, and then by Rabbi Akiva something else. These were like the great luminaries, great teachers at that time. HaPesach and Echel. Mantana. Who says that the Pesach you have to finish by Chatzos? No, it's all the other kabbanas. It seems it's only as we'll soon see in the Rabbanan. You have to have a Chatzos, like the first Mishnah Brachas. Lachikim and Aveda. We don't want you to be procrastinate. But who said your Pesach? It is clearly only till midnight. Who says that? Montana. Who says that? I'm going to be says Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Lezer. That follows Rabbi Lezer. The time we learned those in the Brayso. Rabbi Lezer. Nemakan balayla hazeh. It says over here balayla hazeh. It says over here you should eat the Korban Pesach balayla hazeh. Okay, on this night. But Nemalahal, and it says there when by Makkah B'Chodesh, it says there by Vaytim Mitzrayim balayla hazeh. And we know when was Makkah B'Chodesh. Malahal and Ad Chatzos. Just like we did Makkah B'Chodesh. Ad is the same thing over here. Avkan Ad Chatzos. So in other words, it's an ironclad halacha that you cannot eat beyond Chatzos. That's the view of Rabbi Lozim Nazaya. There's another passage where it says that this is how you should prepare yourself and eat. You should eat it in great haste. And we dashen ad shas chipazon till the moment that you guys are starting to rush. And that was in the morning when they had to go out. Im came according to Matam at this night. I would have thought that you can eat it during the day. You shecht at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after the Tamid. Maybe you can sit down and start your meal then. Come to tell you about not to tell you when it ends, but to tell you when it begins. You start a day. Start at night. So our mission follows who told you that I'm Mishnah and we're following the Torah? Maybe it's like all the other kabbanas that really you can go to the morning. Because the Gemara says no, the lashon here is different. It says ein nechel ela ad chatzos, which is different than all other kabbanas. It says chatzos. Here it says ve'ein nechel ela ad chatzos. Ki hasam na what? Ki hasam ahasam deraisa kanam deraisa. It must be just like all the other dinim said about tzli by Korban Pesach. It's not from the Rabbanon, that's from HaTorah. And the fact that it has to be nominated, that's not from the Rabbanon, that's from HaTorah. And then it adds the din, must be that it's in the same range of what? It's from HaTorah. How could I say? How do I say? Big machlekes are shayim. Master machlekes. So who's Allah like Rosh Nazaya Rabbi Kiva? Here we have a Stam Mishnah Klor like Rosh Nazaya. We have another couple Stam Mishnahs. We have others that follow Rabbi Kiva. And that is why we are machmir the first night, definitely, that we finish, even after came in before Chatzos, to satisfy the view of Rabbi Lazar Melazariah. The second night, we're not makpid, and we can go in further. In fact, Al Rebbe goes further, even the fourth kais you should have before Chatzos. The beautiful Avnei Nezer who says he make this whole tonight, how you can get around it to, you want to finish after Chatzos. Anyway, for another time. Now